Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I want to welcome you back to our show. Since it's Halloween, and we have a lot of horror movies and horror episodes that we are releasing this month because it is the greatest month in the calendar year for us horror fans, as we get to delve deep and enjoy a plethora of different types of horror films. And what we're doing today is we are actually going to be taking a cue from the Italian film industry, as we haven't done much in regards to Italian horror films. So this is a great jumping on point for some people. We're going to be doing The Church from producer Dario Argento and director I always Michele Soavi.
Well,
Hope,
I've got a pronunciation
yeah,
for you.
please, thank you.
It's kind of tough. Actually, it's Mecca Mekali Soavi
Soavi,
Mekali Soavi. But
Michele Soavi,
he also goes by Michael, which is easier to say in English. So
Michele Soavi. Okay.
yeah.
Since I've never actually heard anyone pronounce his name. But we're doing his movie, The Church. I know we could be doing some of his more famous ones, but because this one is not nearly as famous, it makes it much more interesting for us to have a discussion with. And as you've already heard, my special guest for this episode is Dave Watkins. He is helping me.
Yeah.
Yes, he is helping me
Yeah.
get through so many great horror films this month to entertain you all out there week after week after week as we delve into all things horror. So,
So
The Church.
curious on that. What would you consider what would you consider as better movies? Because I've always thought The Church to me was one of his better ones.
Oh, Cemetery, man, I can watch and rewatch a billion times. I absolutely love, and that was the movie that got me interested in his work to begin with. After I did that one, I like Stage Fright too. I like the atmosphere and the cinematography in Stage Fright. I'm a little afraid to rewatch that one. Because
Yeah, that's the one I haven't seen. I haven't seen Stage Fright, but I was looking at it. I've been eyeballing
I'm
it.
afraid to rewatch that because I'm thinking I might not enjoy it as much as I did when I was younger. Because I love the look of this movie, and I watched a lot of his films when I was younger. We were just talking about The Sect before we start the show, and I don't remember that one at all. So I have to go back and rewatch that one because it just dawned on me I never I don't remember it. Uh,
Yeah, there's some good stuff in this sec, but it is kind of like really bizarre. It's Gonzo kind of Rosemary's Baby ripoff, but it does have Herbert Lawman in it. If you know who that is, he does pretty good in it.
mm,
Herbert Lawman. You ever seen the Pink Panther films?
mhm.
Peter Sellers said he played like the Detective Dreyfus in them.
So the thing is, and I'll have to do a little bit more digging. I've seen some of his TV movies that have been released here in the States, but as I'm looking over his filmography, it just dawns on me that there's a lot of his later films I've never seen before. And he, like Dario Argento and a lot of other great Italian directors, when the industry started to go downhill, went into television. And it is rare to see the Italian television series translated to or for American audiences. Thankfully we have Shudder streaming service. They put some of this stuff out there. I'm hoping one day we'll be able to see a lot more of his television work, because it's just like Dario Argento's television work. It's really hard to see some of it. But I will say that before we get into The Church, of course, is it didn't dawn on me that he also directed Dario Argento's World of Horror, which I recently found a VHS copy of and watched like a year or two ago, which I really enjoyed. I don't actually know if that one's been released as a regular release here in the United States, because I have a VHS copy of that one. Because I've been wanting to see it and I never could. So Italian cinema is weird, because there are some movies that just translate really easily, and then there are others that never make their way over here to the States, and it's a shame. It's a shame. So,
But this is definitely kind of his peak in this area, where in the area where this is 1989.
mhm.
That's when The Church came out, and that was kind of he's kind of at that when he made Cemetery Man. He made Stage Fright before this one, but it was kind of his better movies all happened in a shorter time span, and then
Mhm.
it kind of went downhill from there, just because of I think most of it had to do with the budgets becoming
Yeah.
smaller. Because if you look at any of these films, like they look like the budget is out of sight, especially on the art direction.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of where he came in to begin with, is from art directing and set deck, and so a lot of it, a lot of his films look amazing just because of that and the special effects.
Yeah.
And this one was originally supposed to be a sequel to Demons 2. It's supposed to be Demons 3 when
Oh,
they were writing it. Yeah,
was this one of the many Demon sequels? See, I've lost track of every Italian movie that was supposed to be a freaking Demon sequel. But I could actually see that. Actually, I could see that.
right. Yeah, they ended up like taking that back. They originally had the demons that like Demons 2 in the script, but then they decided to make it its own thing. They thought it could stand by itself without having to have the demons title with it. The first time I saw I was aware of this film. I remember it being on the shelf at the video store, and it's kind of caught my eye the way the cover looked. The cover has the old bishop on the cover standing in front of it, kind of low angle shot, and he kind of looks a little creepy, like he might not even be human. And then you got the church in the background, and that was kind of like when I first saw it. I was aware of it. I think I didn't see it until it was on TV, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mm.
then
Well, I saw it when they re-released it with part of I forget what company. It may have been Anchor Bay. And I have to go look at my version of it, but I think it was Anchor Bay because they were doing these Dario Argento collection uh
right, right.
DVDs and Blu-rays, and I believe that's how I finally was able to see this film. I'd seen Stage Fright, and Cemetery Man obviously is probably his most well-known internationally, because it was also based on a hugely popular Italian graphic novel, which is also amazing, Dylan Dog. I would never have read that Italian comic book had it not been for the actual movie Cemetery Man,
Yeah,
which
Cemetery Man it has Dylan Dog in it, but it's not really Demon Dog. Dylan Dog, the character was based on Rupert Everett, who plays the main character in Cemetery Man, but it's a different story, but it's actually the closest to Dylan Dog you've ever seen on screen. They made a movie with Brandon Routh in it, but it sucks. It's nothing like it, you know. But it seems to be almost like a prequel to Dylan Dog.
It does. It does. I like the changes. It's not your typical adaptation, but obviously because that comic book slash graphic novel was released over a period of time, there was a lot of material for. It's like there's a lot of material to pull from, and they like pulled from like a small snippet, and that's what they made the Cemetery Man from. But Cemetery Man, just like the church and the sect, are visually stunning, because Soavi is that
Soavi.
Soavi
Yeah.
has
I've got it written out phonetically over here.
has that visual eye. It does, I think with the church, and for everyone out there who may never have seen the church, just to give you a little background, this holy church was built upon the site of a massacre done by the Teutonic Knights, who killed a bunch of so-called witches and buried them on the site. In order to make the site holy, they built a church. And now,
let me address that scene real quick before we get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this thing starts out, and these knights come up, and they look like they got buckets on their heads, almost like you think something Monty Python's about to happen, but then it gets friggin' gruesome and disturbing, and they go in and they slaughter all these people in it's a pretty hardcore way.
Yeah.
Now, and there is a hint at the beginning. They do seem like they're completely like self-righteous, and they may be doing this just to be assholes, but as they throw all these dead bodies in the pit on top of each other, and there's a lot of people, and it goes from looking like not that big of a budget to like, wow, there's a lot of people in that pit, a lot of extras, but then out of nowhere, like what looks to be a demon claw reaches up and grabs one of the horse's legs, and it pulls one of the knights in. So I think maybe they may have been onto something and not completely wrong by slaughtering the village. Even though I think there's maybe two thoughts of it, but just because it showed that happen, like why would that happen otherwise if they weren't Satan worshipers or demon worshipers to begin with?
Yeah. They go a long way before you see the hand, they go a long way with showing the Teutonic Knights as being almost the bad guys because these villagers look like they're all innocent until you see that hand come up, pull the horse down. I agree
Yeah,
with you 100% on that one.
then yeah, that one girl, the one girl, they look on her bottom of her foot and she has like a cross or something on the bottom of her foot, and they say it's like a mark. So, but at the same time, you're thinking this is not a mark. But then I think it definitely is because
It's a
I think
stigmata mark. They call it
yes,
a stigmata mark, but it's really a cross. Stigmata marks are usually supposed to be representative of the wooden stake that goes into Jesus's ankles, and of course at the bottom of her foot she has a cross that's supposed to be that mark of stigmata.
and
Uh,
if you had that on the bottom of your foot, it would be hard to walk. Really, that would be it looks like it's an open wound too. She's
mhm.
having to deal with it, and but that could have been a coincidence because she could have just stepped on something and had a mark on the bottom of her foot. So all of that seems like they're just vicious and enjoying the violence until that demon hand comes out, and then you're like, okay. But I notice a lot of times when people don't, even like you look on the Wikipedia at the description of that scene, it doesn't even mention the demon hand coming out. It just says the Teutonic Knights are brutal and they slaughter this village, like, and the evil was brought there because of what they did and not because it was there to begin with. It's what it implies. It doesn't say that directly, but it's a possibility. It could have been brought there because of their brutality, but I think it was probably already there.
Yeah, I agree. I to be honest with you, I since I don't remember much of this movie the very first time I saw it, it was very refreshing to see the movie, as if I had never seen it before. I honestly don't remember, could not for the life of me remember anything in this movie when I rewatched it. About the only thing I could think of about this movie when I rewatched it is Asia Argento and the actor I was just looking up.
It was Asia Argento. Which actor? What character does he play?
He plays Gus.
So that's Hugh Quarshie,
Yeah, of course
who
she.
yeah. So he's in the Phantom Menace.
I
Yeah.
don't know it from that. What that I when I was watching the rewatching the movie, I was like, why the hell do I remember this guy? This guy looks familiar. And it's because he was the cop in freaking Nightbreed, which I've seen a
Oh
billion
yeah, yeah, yeah,
times. And I was like, dude, I had to look him up. I was like,
yeah.
why does this guy look familiar to me?
So it was what I guess I guess let's talk about him when we get into that part. But he's a good actor.
He is.
And the characters are like the hero of the story. Um, so after the medieval night part, it goes to present day time, and there's a really cool shot that starts off in the basement of the church, where as the knights are they burying all the people, including their one knight in the pit of all the dead people. They put a cross on top of it, and then they build a church on top of that cross, and then it cuts to present day time, starting on that cross that's under the church, and it has a like a steady cam shot that goes from there up to the up to the church, and it shows like many of the main characters all in the first shot, including Father Gus, who's the kind of
Hmm.
the hero of the story, even though he's not really the main character, but he's definitely the hero of the story. Yes. But he's probably the only out of all the priests and all the characters other than Asia Argento's like Lotte character. He's like the only kind of good character. Everyone
Yeah.
else is kind of corrupt or in some way. Um, but also Asia Argento, Dario Argento's daughter is a 14-year-old girl at the time. She appears in the first scene too in the
Hmm.
medieval times. They pull back. She's like hiding and watching them, and then they pull back and you see her face. So it's kind of weird that I don't know if she's playing the same character or if it's like an ancestor of that character. It's never made clear, but something interesting is going on with her character.
Yeah, it's not made clear, but I kind of just took it as a reincarnated version because obviously she couldn't have had a daughter or kids because she gets killed and she's
Yeah,
only 14.
Does she die in the front of in the beginning of it though? The character
Yeah,
dies.
I assume so because remember the knight looks at her and then I assume that the knight kills her.
Well,
Uh
I think he gets interrupted though. But yeah, it could be like a reincarnated character because she does have parents in there, and they're
a modern day version of her.
yeah, they're part of the church people, and they apparently are not nice people. Her dad doesn't seem to be a nice person. uh,
He does it. But the thing is that all this bad vibes and bad voodoo and everything else that's been buried in this church suddenly bubbles up because the one person who's supposed to be there, the new guy, the character that comes from outside of this circle, who's I don't even know his name anymore.
so the character's name's Alan. That the actor
Thank
plays him
you.
Tomas Arana is how you pronounce his name, but he's an American actor, and he's in Tombstone and Gladiator and Hunt for Red October, so he's in a lot of stuff. But it's kind of funny the way he brought like in these Italian films. A lot of times they will bring like American actors, and even like Hugh Quarshie was a British actor. Uh, he's a black British actor, and he's from Guyana, so you can't really call him African American. So but and there's a lot of other like the main actress, the main character's name is Lisa. She's also kind of an outsider. She's an Italian actress. Who was in some of his other films like The Sect and Cemetery Man.
Yeah.
Played Barbara Kapisky.
Whiskey.
Yeah, but she is there. They're doing a renovation on the church, and
Hmm.
I guess in this type of old, it's really old church. And the church itself is amazing the way that it looks. It's a really big and it's a real building. But they're doing renovations on it, and she's there. She's outsider, and then the new librarian Alan comes in, and then
Catalog everything.
yeah, and then he meets Dario Argento's daughter with like Lotte's character, and it's kind of some weird like type of almost flirtation between him and this 14-year-old girl.
There is.
And it's like kind of there to begin with, and then later on even more. So it's like, but he also is flirting with the other lady, the Lisa character,
Yeah.
and so there's this old bishop character that comes in, and he comes in. He's thinking he's the librarian, and he's flirting with this young 14-year-old girl, and then the bishop comes in and kind of comes in acting like a jerk, not really a jerk. He kind of comes in acting like a bishop should. He's irritable, and he's just like, you're late. And he just seems, and earlier on, he just seems like he's just grumpy and he's just kind of tired. But then there's something more to his character later in the film. But um,
But but the thing is, it's a really slow reveal, because the audience is learning about what all this is meaning, just as the characters are. But you're right, there's a lack of a main character that you follow because you think that the was it Alan?
yeah, right, yeah.
Evan character is like going to be like your main follow through with this film. But then
Yeah.
of course, he doesn't, and then you start following the Father Gus, and then you also have to follow Lottie. And it's a weird movie because because
Yeah, yeah, there's some, yeah, I agree. There's some ensemble going on, and there's really the movie's two movies. It's two different parts. It's like you got the first half, which is all the opening up of the bottom of the church, letting the demons into the church, and that's a very it kind of in this movie. I can name a lot of movies that this borrows from, like The Shining. Yeah, I got a list. Like, and this is 1989, and all these
uh-huh.
films were before this. So The Shining's one at 1980, and so this character, his name's Evan. I have it written down. It's Evan. I think you're right. So this character is kind of like Jack Nicholson's character in that, where he comes in and he seems. Well, Jack Nicholson's character starts off crazy, but in The Shining from the novel, he starts out kind of nice, And then as he becomes more and more obsessed with the findings, which is the demons under the church, and
Hmm.
trying to do the research, and he becomes more and more obsessed, and he even at one point does like Jack Nicholson sort of thing, like he does with the typing on the typewriter. But when
Hmm.
Lode comes in, and then he turns around and he looks like he's going to rape her, but then he's actually wanting to kill her instead of rape her. So it's but then another influence, like the Keep. And I know you guys talked about that recently. That the Keep is like reminds me of
Ah,
this a lot. As far as and that's 1983. That was like before this.
yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the Keep. I saw mostly The Shining and Rosemary's Baby, but the Keep is actually another good one. It does follow a lot. You're right.
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of Prince of Darkness, the John Carpenter film. Just because of the religious stuff going on, but not as much as the other films I mentioned. But
Hmm.
and it also has a lot of since like I think Michael Lee he was Dario Argento's apprentice. So really any Dario Argento film is similar to that too, and he that has the same kind of style almost, the same way that he shoots things in some instances.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I don't think he has his own real, his style until he gets to Cemetery Man. The Cemetery Man does not feel like a Dario Argento film, but this one, and I can imagine the Sect, which is probably why I don't remember it so well. Feel like a Dario Argento film, just like
The stage
Stage
fright.
Fright does.
Yeah, yeah, stage fright. I hadn't seen it, but reading about it, it does seem like
Oh
a
yeah.
Giallo movie.
Yeah, it does. It
But,
does. And that's why I say I loved it when I was younger because I went through this whole Giallo phase where
yeah,
I watched a lot of Giallo. But I haven't gone back to rewatch some of them. And I'm afraid that if I go back, I'm probably gonna see all the screw ups and the fact that most of them make little to no sense because
right. Yeah,
that's part of the good and bad of Italian films from the 70s and 80s.
I think like one thing I've been watching a lot lately, and they all kind of start to seem the same after a while when you're watching them. It's like not this. This isn't a giallo. This is like a supernatural
Mhm.
horror, like demons. But a lot of the giallos to me become very. It's hard to tell them apart in some ways. Even though there's better ones than others. But
And I will give a quick plug if you have Shudder streaming service, you can catch up with a lot of Giallo on there if there's still all of them on there. I did that. I watched way too many of them within a 2 week span, catching up on all the ones I had never seen, and my brain was completely warped by the end of it. Uh, so and you're right. If you watch a lot of them back to back to back, they do feel like they're the exact same film with different actors,
yeah,
but pretty much
yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah, they're always a little bit different. There's always something they're going to bring something to the table in some ways, but uh, it was weird in this film. The film itself, like in the location, it almost seems timeless, where it could be in any time. But then there's a couple of scenes where Lotte leaves the church and she
Mhm.
goes into town, and it's like the most 80s looking stuff you've ever seen in your life. You know what I'm saying? It's like very jarring because you're kind of thinking, okay, this could might as well have been in the 1960s or the 40s or whatever, But then it's like, okay, this is kind of is modern day for when it was shot in '89. It probably takes place in 1989,
Hmm.
but it doesn't seem that way unless you're in town, which only happens twice.
Yeah, but it does give you a contrast to the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, the church is such an amazing location. I mean, there's a lot of great design a lot of great designs that you see in the angles and the cinematography and the production design that so Soavi does that you can see. And I think, it's the same with Stage Fright, and it's the same with Cemetery Man. He knows how to use great locations and or sets. Now I don't know what's a set, if any of this is a set, because it's
Yeah,
Italian movie, and sometimes they built whole sets, and sometimes they just went out and shot on physical locations.
right. Well, most of it is a set. The majority of it is. There are some scenes, especially near the end,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. Most of it is a real location, not then most of it's not sets. The majority of it is, but at the end of it though, especially when he's under the church and he does, a lot of some of that's like sets, but especially when you have to do the special effects and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
I will say though, as much as I don't like the fact that there is no like main character that you follow and it's more of an ensemble as this whole, and I will say the church is a character in the film. You're more or less following these characters as they are influenced by what's happening at the church.
yeah,
And
and this is interesting about the church itself. I just had to look at it, make sure I was remembering it right, then
okay.
where it was. But I think they had like a church that they wanted to shoot in, and I think it was Catholic, and they wouldn't let them do it. But then like they found one in Budapest, and it pretty much was what you're seeing on screen. That's the way the church looked for the most part, except for the extra stuff they added the sets in. But they were open to them shooting in there.
Oh, huh. That's good to know. But I'm not actually surprised. A lot of Italian productions rarely shot in Italy.
Yeah, yeah. But it's tough though to go into a church and shoot this type of film, I would think, and they got pretty lucky that they let them do it. On this I think it was on the director's commentary, they were talking about how there was a demonologist, Monsignor Belushi, and they let him read the script to see if it would offend the religious establishments. And he said he read it and he got back with them and he's like I didn't find it offensive for religious purposes, because for this purpose, if God exists, the devil must also exist too. So he kind of gave them. They weren't really looking for his approval, but they were just kind of curious how bad it was going to be for the church. Um, he also mentions that he says there's a sense of mysticism to the film, especially in the architects of the cathedrals. A lot of the huge Gothic cathedrals were constructed around Europe around 1000 AD, which is an odd thing because there were these huge Gothic cathedrals that were just kind of, I guess they had a lot of money at the time, and it was more of a political thing where they're all surrounded with gargoyles and all this stuff. But these very huge, expensive cathedrals, and they all popped up around the same time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a looking into that and why it's kind of this isn't the real reason why they're there, but it is a possible explanation that they built it over this to keep the evil at bay in this instance.
Yeah, which if you've seen The Keep, that's actually a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's why I say since I have just recently seen The Keep, and that was for an episode of our previous show. So if you're a fan of The Keep, please check that episode out. But I had no clue about The Keep, nothing until I saw it recently. And so now that you mentioned it, Dave, there is so much
yeah
parallels the two films.
Especially when the way that they were released, the demons,
mm-hmm.
it's just so similar to it.
Yeah. And which brings me to I don't want to give away too much of the ending because the ending does get a little batshit crazy. But there are some aspects that are really cool that are kind of off the beaten path. Especially when the two young characters get trapped in the tunnels, and of course, they meet. Actually, I don't think the man gets killed when the one. So these two teenage kids, I guess teenagers best.
Yeah, they're like, but they're like motor. But it's weird though. This is like. I was going to point this out. This is the second half of the movie. What happens? There's a very clear part where this starts. It cuts to like a new day. And there's all of a sudden you go to the church and there's like about 10 new characters introduced in one scene. Like there's just people outside the church having a wedding party, and they're not really having. They're like it's like a photo shoot for a wedding. I don't even think they're really going to. I mean, I think they're eventually going to get married. I don't think they're actually actively getting married. I think it's more of a photo shoot. And then there's these two biker people that you're talking about. There's a guy and a girl who are on bikes that. They look maybe a little too old to be teenagers, but
I know.
And then there's a teacher with a big group of kids who have come to, I guess, check the church out on a field trip, and then they got all these new characters there to get killed.
They all show up. Yeah, I thought it was really odd for the two motorcycle characters, but I also thought it was odd for this class of kids to show up at this church too.
Well, there is a scene earlier, like the very first scene I was talking about, when it shows the camera come through and it's a steady cam showing the church. There's a different group of kids on another field trip there, so I guess it's kind of a common thing that happens at this church. So it's kind of established. And I guess
I don't think I noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed it when I was watching it a second time, but because I was always thinking it's like so funny, all these new characters show up and out of nowhere. But I guess it kind of makes sense because there would be always different people coming into this big church in different reasons.
Yeah,
they all get locked. They all get locked in the church. This ancient device unlocks basically once the demons are unleashed, it unlocks them all in the church.
Yeah, I found that I don't remember. I found that very hilarious that they all get locked in the church. And then of course the two motorcycle teenagers, I'm gonna call them teenagers, find their way through different catacombs underneath the church, and they're trying to find a way out. And it's so funny how they get to their demise, so to speak.
Right. I think there's a lot of cool scenes, especially in the second half, as far as like the bride, the doors close and it closes on her dress, and then she's stuck and she can't get out of that situation, and then people are getting killed around her, and then so it's like a pretty messed up situation to be stuck in that door and you can't get away from what's going on. There's a lot of cool stuff like that going on.
Because it's a visual thing, and it's just like the two teenagers who get their demise underneath the church, and I'll just say that one of them has to meet up with a train face first. It just dawned on me, I don't realize what happens to the male character. I don't think they show what happens to him, but visually speaking, just like you were just discussing about with the one woman who gets trapped in the door and can't get out. The ideal that these two characters end up almost like a black hole, which is also parallel to when we see all the bodies rising from this black hole that's in the bottom of the church later in the film. There seems to be a lot of visuals like that go on. But it makes it seem as though they drop down into this bottomless pit.
Right. Yeah.
Demon eyes show up, and then of course at the very last moment we realize it's a subway train. Now I'm not sure where the hell the subway train comes in to play near church.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think it's really there. I think it's a demon train, but it's visually very cool. If there's nothing else, the lack of logic, like you've already said, there's a very defined style with this film that will entertain you regardless of how the logic fits all together. Well, I think that I don't know, man. I guess there's some logic in the illogical, because he unleashes these demons. They're trapped in there inside the church. And what's another interesting thing about it, it shows the medieval knights, or the Teutonic knights again, in a flashback, where the architect of the church, they're so ridiculous that after he designs the church, they kill him, and then they like put his grave in the middle of the church. It's the only grave in the church, and then they put a failsafe in his mouth, so that if you pull the failsafe out of his mouth, this church will be destroyed. But yeah, that's like a very interesting way of doing things, I think.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say something about that, because Father Gus goes back after he sees, and this is where the Rosemary's Baby part comes in. He's seeing the demon have sex with the Lisa character, and it's like,
was it Baphomet? Is Baphomet like a winged goat?
It's Baphomet. He's supposed to. I've got to save the church now. he could have escaped, but instead he has to save the world and save the church.
Hey,
And
I just remembered. Yeah, I just remember what happened to the biker guy. I think it was a big fish, like gets on his head, like a big fish. But I think that that's what it is, and that's the whole thing. I just remember like that the whole thing is that none of it's happening for real, for the most part, because people are imagining these things happening to them, even though they're getting killed, but not by the things that they're seeing. Because like a lot of times when the guy's got the fish on his face,
Mhm.
somebody looks in there and they see him with no fish on his face, and he's like struggling with the air. But when you see you see him, and he's got it on his face, but the other characters don't see it. With the exception of when you see Baphomet and he's like he's railing like the main main girl. He's like, and they're all just standing around watching it. A bunch of Satan, where they've all kind of turned into Satan worshipers all of a sudden, and he's just in there like having sex with. I think that's real because when Father Gus walks by, he sees it.
He sees it.
Yeah, and where if it was just her imagination, then but I think a lot of it is hallucinatory, especially like the train, like you're saying, because it's not really there yet to a certain extent. Yeah.
You know what? When and if I rewatch it, I'll have to take it under consideration about that because I didn't think of it that way, but you could actually be completely right about that. It has this sort of dream logic to it. And that would explain why certain things to me just felt really odd and weird. It has this type of dream logic to it.
But
Um,
I would think the biggest tell is that fish on the guy's face, and then it not being there, and then later on with the goat creature like having sex with like Lisa, and then the Father Gus actually seeing it. I thought it was interesting about Father Gus is like there's this badass scene kind of in the middle of it where he gets his bow and arrow,
yeah.
and he goes and shoots at this target. He sees like the Teutonic Knight for a minute, and it's like but it doesn't. He never does anything with the bow and arrow. It's kind of funny that they would do that, but they should have followed through with that and had him use it in the church.
Somewhere,
Yeah,
somewhere.
for like but he is kind of established as I'm not sure exactly what that means that he sees the night. I mean, he's clearly the hero of the movie, but
So I see that that scene in the same way that I saw the Lottie a character and the character at the very beginning of the film, some type of reincarnation type thing going on. So I when he sees the Teutonic Knight when he's shooting the bow and arrow, and the Teutonic Knights in reference to this story think that they're doing the right thing. Um,
right,
I see him because he sees the Teutonic Knight again. Or it's cut the footage is cut in with him. And I
right.
kind of see him as that character. He has to save everyone. But he doesn't because, obviously at the very end of the movie, you realize the church has been destroyed and all these people were killed.
He does save he actually saves everybody except for the people in the church.
Yeah, except
There's
for
a
the people in church.
there's a scene when he goes up to the bishop, and the bishop he's got the information about how to destroy the church, but he tells him he's not going to let him have it. He's got it in his hand, and then he says, "Why? Pretty much, why aren't you going to let me have it? What's up with that?" And then the bishop's like, "Well, I just want everybody to die because he's pretty much doesn't like people anymore. He doesn't have any faith in people, so he's going to let the demons out, and that's what he wants. He wants to let the demons out." And then they wrestle over the piece of paper, and the bishop falls out the window and lands on
Yeah.
that statue. It's pretty cool shot. But
Which
then he,
reminds me of something else. I can't remember
yeah,
another film. I couldn't put my finger on it. Like I've seen it
Sleepwalkers
somewhere.
maybe. Sleepwalkers obviously came after this.
It
It
came
was
out.
yeah, but there. And I don't know what you mean though. It does remind me of something. I don't know what it is either.
I don't remember, but whatever.
But then after that, he finds out through Latte. I think it's Latte who tells him how to really. I think it's through a book and Latte how to take take the thing out of the
Hmm.
architect's mouth, and he knows by doing that he's going to have to sacrifice himself and who's ever in the church. Latte, and he's given an out. Latte says she's the only person who knows another way out of the church. It's the front
Hmm.
doors, and then there's another passage out of the back, and she's the only one that knows. And she gives him an out. She says, "We can escape right now, and instead of escaping." he does like what a hero martyr would do, and he goes and because if he didn't do that, then the demons probably would have eventually gotten out of the church. But he goes and he destroys the church and himself,
Mm-hmm.
and it pretty much saves I guess the world from the demons escaping.
And then there's your reference for the Demons movies and
Yeah.
franchise, since the demons all get loose and wreak havoc on the world. But I can see that's where they probably had the seed of an ideal for Demons 3, but it obviously went off on its own tangent. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think they were right in not actually doing the Demons 3 in the church. It would have been fine. It probably would have even made more money, maybe. I don't know, um, but I think that making it its own thing,
yeah.
it did help make it seem more prestigious, I guess, and not just like another demon sequel. Even
Well,
though,
yeah, because
yeah,
the demons movies are usually fun and chaotic, and they also lack a little bit of logic.
yeah, right. And,
But
yeah. That's something I used to have a hard time with the demons movies. I think I tried to watch them when I was younger, and I couldn't get past the non-logical stuff. But now, I think if you look at it differently, I actually enjoyed them. I watched them maybe a year or two ago, and I thought they were both fairly entertaining. You just got to let go of that. Like you can't, you got to let go of the logic sometimes, and not be caught up in whether something makes sense. But sometimes if you think about it hard enough, you can make it make sense. You know, it's just,
I will tell you this: the Demons movies I absolutely loved as a kid, but I have not seen them in quite a long time.
yeah,
Because I like the illogicalness of both of the movies, but I love the visuals, and there is just shit in those movies that make absolutely no sense. But they're fun, or
yeah.
at least they were when I was a kid. I'm a
I think
grown
no,
up.
I think they hold up, and like I don't know if they hold up, but I definitely like had a good time watching them when I
Good.
watched them reach. I think it's Synapse Films released it's a pretty good copy of like Demons 1 and 2. It's like a set, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
both new transfers. They look terrific.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, mine are old. I think mine are Anchor Bay. I think
yeah.
all my versions of everything back then is Anchor Bay. I know most of my Dario Argento stuff is Anchor Bay, so I'm thinking my Demons ones were Anchor Bay too. So
I think there is that's a Blu-ray version, but it is a 4K transfer. It looks good, but there is a 4K. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a 4K release of them coming out if it hasn't already, which I didn't get because I just had got the Blu-ray, so I'm like, I'm not doing it.
you weren't even sure if you were gonna like them. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
it was funny. I used to have them on VHS, and I bought the VHS tape at one point, and I was trying to watch it, and I just couldn't make it through one of the two I was watching. I can't remember. It may have been Demons. I think it's Demons 2. But I liked it this time. I was able to like not give a shit about it making sense or not, or what it is. You know what it is. It's like if you're not used to the Italian dubs, and it's like and you think if you think that looks bad, like the Italian dubs or the acting from that, uh, it's if you can't get past that, it's hard to watch. But once you accept it, that this is an Italian dub, this is probably not the real actors' voices, or it's easier to handle.
so you have to remember they didn't record live audio when they were making all these films. So they always did their audio post anyways. That's why they all are like this. They were the complete opposite of what American cinema did back in that day, which is why they were able to throw all these different types of people from all these different types of countries in the
Yeah,
same movie, and I guarantee you half of them didn't know what the other one was fucking saying. Uh,
yeah, yeah. It's so weird. Yeah, that. Um, I thought there's a very cool like special effects set piece near the end of the film when everything's going to hell, and then
yeah,
it comes up out of the ground. It's like all the bodies of the witches, and they're all a kind of this big mess of bodies coming up out of the ground. It's such an awesome visual when that happens.
it is, and I was hoping you'd mention it because I didn't want to mention that first. That it's it's still that whole visual sequence holds up extremely well because it looks cool as shit still,
Yeah.
and because you see random limbs are moving, you see it slowly rose out of the ground, and you see Father Gus as he's trying to unlock the whole alchemy thing, and try because it's the pit, the bodies from the pit, the witches as we're gonna call them, the
Yeah.
witches are rising, and they're going to take over the world if Father Gus doesn't save everyone but kill the people in the church.
Yeah. Well, most of them are dead already anyway.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah. The logic is so funny, and it's one of those things where a lot of the stuff in these older Italian films probably would not even be attempted today unless it was Dario Argento and he was doing Mother of Tears again.
that shit it would look like CGI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't look like what it looked like. That would be CGI'd because it would be like, do we really want to do that? It seems like a lot of extra work. Why don't we just put some CGI in there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I do think having the physical effects allows this movie to hold up pretty well even today. Even though my lack of logic has gotten to me now that I'm older. So, like I said, there are some amazing visuals in these films. The stage fright, this one, Cemetery Man, all that. And I'm gonna be like you, and I'm gonna probably seek out the 4K version so I can see how great these movies actually look because mine are all DVD versions. I don't even have a
Yeah, yeah. I got a DVD of Cemetery Man too, but that 4K Cemetery Man looks really good.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
I've got to get that.
yeah.
Because I think the last time I saw Cemetery Man was probably whenever the remake Dylan Dog came out. I saw it right before I saw that.
It's a
It's probably,
2010, yeah.
so that was the last time I
Yeah.
saw Cemetery Man.
Right. That's probably the last time I saw it. I watched it last night and for the first time since then. And I think I tried to watch it was weird. That Cemetery Man's weird for me because I liked it the first time I saw it. And then I was watching it another time and I was watching it with somebody else. I was like, check this out. And I don't remember who it was. Whoever I was watching it with, I know it was a woman, but she didn't like it. She thought it was like stupid, So I was like, okay. And I never went back to finishing it after that. But yeah, but I don't know. I like the film though. I mean, I like this film too. I've always kind of since the first time I saw it, I've always kind of thought it had a good kind of feel to it. And
Well,
I think too, like I hadn't seen a lot of Italian type of films, like horror films, like before seeing this one. So it was one of the earlier ones I saw. So it was kind of a different type of aesthetic going on with it when compared to what I normally watch. And it's not even like because it is a supernatural like Italian film, so it's not even that Italian. It has other types of I guess influences as
oh
well.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's one of the reasons why the Italian film industry, in my opinion, survived so well in the 70s and 80s is because they were trying to emulate American cinema, what the American audiences wanted, and they just happened to be crazier, more nudity, bloodier. Until of course we got into that age. I don't remember when Maniac came out, where Tom Savini was doing these extreme horror effects. And of course, then you start seeing some of that in Lucio Fulci's films, which were not nearly as popular as Dario Argento's films. Because Dario Argento, in my opinion, has more style.
yeah. Yeah, I saw one of his films recently, like Lucia. I can't remember what it was now, but I don't know. I know. See, he did Demons though, right? He did Demons 1 and 2, right?
No, Lamberto Bava did.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, and Lamberto Bava did. And the thing about as many films of Lamberto Bava as I've seen, I don't see a style with his films.
Right, right.
I wish I could, but his films feel like a Dario Argento movie to me. And that's because everyone kind of came up with Argento. He kind of shot to fame, and everybody was gravitating. There was a group of them. I can't remember the group, the three of them, and then everyone kind of gravitated from that group out to their own stuff. But a lot of them didn't have their own style, so they all kind of felt like a Dario Argento film.
Yeah, but just not quite as heavy. But yeah, I mean, it's I definitely see that, but I think that too, though, if all these guys are working on the films, maybe they had a hand in making the Dario Argento's films look the way that they did look to
Oh,
begin
they
with.
most certainly did. When it was the 80s, whenever Opera and Profondo Rosso and some of those other ones were being made where he had real budgets and
Well,
he could.
yeah, Opera was one of the later ones in the whole thing. It was
Yeah, but opera had that extremely creative camera angle that goes around the entire thing, the entire interior of that he can't do
yeah.
now,
Well,
which
that
is why.
yeah. What was funny about that scene too is that it wasn't originally supposed to be like that. They originally had an actress playing that character. That it's a camera point of view, but I think it was a famous actress too. And then she ended up like dropping out or not being able to do it last minute. So they were like, that's when they came up with the Steadicam point of view of that character. And you only see her right before she gets hit by the car, like from a really wide shot.
I've always enjoyed opera. Same with Profondo Rosa, or Deep Red is what it's
Yeah.
more famously known as. Those have always been some of my favorites. I think Dario Argento's film started going a little bit downhill a little bit when his budget started being slashed after Trauma. But some of his
Yeah.
films are still visually stunning. Unfortunately, some of his latter films, which you can also get on Shutter now, since some of his most recent films are all on Shutter. So it's actually I'm actually really happy he's still doing movies because he went off to TV land like a lot of Italian directors. But Shutter has allowed him to release some of his later films, which is so great, even though they're okay. It's great to see him working again.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because there's so many great Italian directors still working that we don't see anymore. Um, and the thing is, Argento had great style in his films. He was doing shit that other people weren't doing. And which is why those films are remembered. Stuff like what he would did, his visual effects for Phenomena, when people weren't doing the stuff like that back
Yeah.
then. He was coming up with creative stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Phenomenon. It's Suspiria. Yeah.
Suspiria or Inferno. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, some of the set pieces for Inferno are freaking amazing. Um, but you look at Mother of Tears, it's not so amazing anymore.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't seen that one. That's like it's a, the, there's like a trilogy. Mother of Tears is one of them,
it's
and Inferno,
it's
and
yeah, it's Suspiria, Inferno, and then he finally finished it off with Mother of Tears.
I think it's just called the Mother trilogy or something like that. They all have a witch.
The three
Three
mothers.
mothers. They all have like a witch in them as the
Yeah.
antagonist that are the mothers, I guess.
Yeah, Mother of Tears is not nearly as interesting or engaging or entertaining or visually stunning or anything compared to the other two. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm just glad he talked about it for years before doing it. And I wish someone would give Soave something else to do now. Is he still alive? Shit,
Yeah,
I
he is. He is.
I feel bad not knowing this,
Yeah,
but so many of these great directors went off to do television, and since we don't see a lot of their television work, I kind of forget whether or not they're still around or not. It's
says he's 67 years old. He's
but he
still
was
working.
yeah, he did a television show in 23. So I
Yeah.
mean, Dario Argento went to television, and they weren't
Hey,
getting budgets to do feature films. They were getting budgets to do low budget television shows. So
so check this out. There's a movie. I was actually looking at this. Like he directed a movie in 2018 called The Legend of the Christmas Witch, and it's Italian language Christmas fantasy comedy. So I don't know how it is, but he did direct a movie in 2018. So
yeah, well, it'd be kind of interesting to see where you would find it.
yeah, I was trying. Actually, I was trying to find it the other day. I didn't come up with a good solution on it. I did. It looks like I could find it in a low
It's on
quality.
Freebie.
Yeah,
You can find it. It's on Plex and Freebie.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna have to go find it now because and quick plug for Freebie and Plex. You can also find a lot of these hard to find movies that are foreign movies like this on those two, which I was completely surprised by. You can't find these on fucking mainstream streaming services, but you can find them on Freebie and Plex. So it's allowed me to finally catch up on some of these foreign movies that I just haven't been able to see. And that's going to be on my list now. Because yeah.
I'm kind of interested to check it out, but
This is the rabbit holes we sometimes go through.
yeah.
I mean, like I'm there's just the TV movie.
Hey, but check, so here's a review on it. It says it's 4 out of 5 stars. This beautifully cinematic take on an ancient Christmas myth will warm your hearts of all children from 7 up, including anyone's grandmother. So I don't know. It's a gothic fairy tale for the family. I don't know. It's good. I mean, I kind of like, there's not that many interesting Christmas movies because there's only like maybe 10 to 20 good ones, and there's all these Hallmark and Lifetime ones that are all the same. So it's kind of you don't have that many options when it comes to Christmas movies. As you do the Halloween, there's an infinite amount of movies to watch for Halloween. So
you are right that you know what we'll have to try and delve into that when December comes around. Delve into some of these non-anthology Christmas horror films. There are tons of anthology films that are holiday based, but there's not so many actual horror Christmas movies, and it's a shame. I wish
should put Krampus on the list. That's a good one there.
I think Krampus is on the list, but we haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Trick or Treat. We haven't gotten around to it.
They got a new 4K that coming. It just some people have already gotten it. I've got it ordered, but it hadn't shown up yet.
Trick or Treat I do love. I just haven't seen it in a very long time. So
I was watching it every year. I think that last year was maybe the first one because I kind of was like, okay, I don't know if I could watch it again this year. I'm going to watch it this year when it shows up in the mail, but I've typically tried to watch it once a year.
Yeah, you sound like I was when I was younger, and I was watching Halloween every year. I would watch every one of the sequels until Rob Zombie did his, and then that's kind of like when I stopped watching every Halloween movie because at that time.
Too many of them.
Yeah, there were too many of them. I stopped. Oh no, it was Resurrection. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Resurrection was the last one where I stopped because I've only ever seen Resurrection twice. The rest of them I've seen more. I've seen tons of time. Tons of times. So, well, before we get on to any more tangents, as we like to do here at Conversations in Horror, are there any final words about the church that you would like to say, Dave?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I got one other thing, a talking point I was going to point out, and then I do want to do a kind of a wrap up on it. But there's this weird painting in the front of the church that they're restoring, and it just seems really out of place to me. It's got all these monsters and shit all over it. It just seems. I know it's like obviously not really in that church. They must have brought it in, but it just always kind of sticks out to me. And I mean, what do you think about it?
I thought it was more or less like it was part of the. I don't know why they're restoring it. I think it is part of a Gothic tradition in a lot of churches that had all kinds of pictures and stained glass images like that. I saw that as something like Rawhead Rex. And I may be the only person who really loves Rawhead Rex. But Rawhead Rex, you're literally looking at this stained glass image of the monster. And you're wondering why this monster is in a stained glass image on the church. And a lot of churches have these Gothic images like that. I don't know why they're restoring it.
Right, but this isn't like a stained. It's like I mean, it's like a big painting. I don't know, but I mean, it is what it is. But to me, it looks cool, but it doesn't seem very church-like at all. Just seeing it,
No, it doesn't seem like the very church. And that's and I don't know why it's there, other than visually speaking, it is a precursor to the fact that there's nefarious things going on in the church itself. But keep in mind that some of these old Gothic churches would have windows and windows and windows of stained glass imagery and artwork in them of all types that depicted images from the church or the Bible, and then it depicted other things.
Right.
And that could just be part of what was in that what did you say this was? Shot at
Budapest. Yeah, Budapest.
Church. Yeah. And if it was a Gothic church, It could have all kinds of shit in there. I mean,
But yeah, I feel like I feel like the set people brought that particular set piece in there. I think that most of the stuff in the church is probably in there
that,
already, but to me that seems like a set dressing item. But I thought it was an odd choice for it. But
well,
I thought I
what,
don't know.
if they brought it in, what you want them to? What's you wanted to be restoring a picture of Jesus Christ, which
What?
has no bearing on the
Yeah.
story whatsoever, but
No,
demons,
no.
witches.
I like the idea that I mean, I just think it should have been a little more subtle. Is all. It could have been some monsters in there, but not like as blatantly horrific as they look in that painting.
They are trying to prep you for that image at the end of the film when the bodies rise from the pit, entwined as one big monster thing.
But
Uh,
that's something he was saying. The director was saying on this making of I was watching that he had a painter paint all of these images of the special effects scenes that whatever they were, and then they would like try to make the scenes look like his paintings.
Interesting.
So it's and a lot of it is kind of picturesque what you're seeing. But
I
I
can
thought
see
that was
that.
interesting. Yeah.
I, how many? I'm gonna ask you. Did you listen to all the commentary for this film?
I didn't watch everything that was. I think I listened to the commentary for the film, but there's a lot of other extras on this. It's like this Severin disc for it, but there's a lot of other extras on it that I didn't get to. But they do have interviews with a lot of the cast members, but I didn't really watch that stuff. But
Hmm,
I did watch a documentary that was on there, and I listened to the director's commentary.
interesting.
Yeah.
I've only for reference, I've only seen a lot of documentaries in regards to the making of a lot of Dario Argento's productions, like the world of Dario Argento, and then there's tons more out there on him. But I've never watched anything on Soave.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's actually there's an interview with him talking a lot on it about the film and stuff. He's kind of an interesting guy. He's fairly likable on camera, and he's not like he just comes off very very humble and likable. I think
Good to know.
not like you would think from watching the film. It's like I don't know. It's like weird. Sometimes you get an idea in your head about what the director's going to be like when you're watching the film, and you think they're going to have some kind of ego going on. But he didn't seem like he had much of an ego. He's very frank what he was talking about, in the interviews.
To be honest with you, out of all the directors, Italian directors we mentioned between Lamberto Bava, him, and Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci, he seems to be the one who's the most low key. Like Cemetery Man may be the one that is probably most well known outside of Italy, uh, and the rest of them are kind of like Stage Fright may also be a bigger one too.
Right.
Church and the Sect, the Christmas one you just mentioned. I don't think he translated to other countries nearly as well or as popular as say Dario Argento, and even Lucio Fulci, who had a small window where he was popular. Dario Argento was popular for a long period of time before his career started to go downhill.
Yeah,
But
or if you look at like what he did though, as far as these films, because these are not like Dario Argento's films are often more slasher type of films or giallo films.
he did a
It,
lot.
it,
Well, he did a lot of giallos to begin with. Then he stopped. He did a lot of supernatural films, and then he went back eventually. But
did
he
opera.
steered away for a while. When he was doing stuff like the Phantom, his version of Phantom of the Opera, and then of course he did his version of Dracula and all these other movies he did because he was trying to get away from the giallo. And then of course he did a movie called Giallo with Brody, Adrian Brody. And then he started to do some of those again because I think Dark Glasses, which is one of his more recent ones, is a giallo too. And then of course he did the Hitchcock themed one. Shit, I
What's
can't think of the name of it because it's a long name. But he went back to it eventually, and they never captured that magic
Well,
again.
I think they had to have been from that era, I think, for them to work. They have to be kind of in, Italian, obviously, and they have to be in that kind of with 60s, 70, 80
They
80s,
do.
even late 80s, like it was still working. But I think that now it, it's I don't know.
Hard.
I don't think you could capture it the same way. I mean, I don't even think because people can't even they can try to act like that, like they're acting in those films, but that'd be really hard to get that type of whatever it was that the way that they're acting was it wasn't necessarily that good, but it was definitely a certain type of way that they are, the way that they looked.
Hmm.
A lot of times they'll try to replicate it a little bit. It'll even look better than it did, but it's not authentic because it
Hmm.
looks too good and the acting's too good. It's like,
Yeah, and his later movies are all trying to make more sense. Like when you're watching Tenebrae and you're watching Deep Red, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make much sense in those movies, but you go along for the ride because especially they look amazing. There's great set pieces, everything else. But when you're watching, say, his Giallo or Dark Glasses, it's all lacking that type of stuff. They're not nearly as interesting. No. But
right.
the Italian film industry, I hope, comes back. Who knows? They rely on, I know, dramas are the big theatrical releases, are dramas. I guess comedies are still relatively popular over there, but horror has died. Unless it's on television, horror has died. It's unfortunate,
Yeah.
we still have these films to watch and go back to and hopefully enjoy, and then of course tell other people to go out and enjoy these types of films because they may have never heard of them, for one, and or they've just never been exposed to them. Giallo is one of those genres that it had its heyday in the 60s and 70s, and it started to die out in the 80s and disappeared completely by probably the mid 80s, the end of the 80s. They were no longer popular at all because even Argento went to supernatural type of films, and The Church is a supernatural type of film.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what I was going to say about this Michael Lee so Javi. I was going to say about him is his films all tend to lean towards that type of supernatural
Yeah.
type of thing. That's very bonkers, almost in some ways Gonzo like. You want to rate this film?
Yes, we should. How did we do it? Did we do it out of 5 stars, or did we do it out of 4 last time?
Let's do it out of 5. I think
I think
this will be
5. I
fine.
think 5 is a good number. We should do it out of 5. All
Yeah.
right. So, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to rate it a 4. I've got some nostalgia behind it when I saw it when I was younger, and I do like. I think it is. You say it borrows from a lot of other movies, but something about it. I think it does. I'm going to 4 is for me anyway.
I'm gonna do 3, mostly because for me, the film is visually still a really arresting and visually stunning movie, but I just couldn't get behind the story as much as I did when I was younger. I'm losing that sense of being able to appreciate bonkers films.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. It's interesting. The first half is a slow going, and you get a lot of character development that ends up getting dropped off in the second half because of once it changes to the church and everybody's trapped in there, it's all like just mayhem at that point.
It's mayhem, and I can appreciate that because some of the set pieces are amazing. I can appreciate that, but when I want to watch something like this, and I want to watch one of Suave's movies, I'm going to steer towards something that I believe he excelled at, which is Cemetery Man. My opinion, that's his undisputed masterpiece. And then, of course,
Yeah. I think Cemetery Man is definitely superior to this film, but I
Stage
do like
Fright is a great Giallo film. I
what
think
is it?
Giallo
Stage
film.
Fright. Yeah,
Stage Fright, I think is
yeah.
a great one. This one, it was in between those movies. So, and that's the reason why when I rewatched it, I was like, dude, I don't remember this movie at all, and I don't remember the sect, and so I need to rewatch it. And
You may not have seen that movie, The Sect. It
oh,
does have.
I have
You
it.
have seen it. It does
Yeah,
have that the actor from this movie that Tomas Arana is in that film. He's especially at the beginning, he plays a kind of a Charles Manson type of character, and he's in the opening part, and he shows up later on. But it's he's kind of interesting seeing him um, between his character in the church and the character in the sect. It's like a completely polar opposite type of character. It's cool that he was. I do like it when directors use actors against, they would give them, I like seeing what they comfortable working with somebody, and then they get very interesting performances out of people.
Hmm. Yeah. Which is why it was always interesting watching Dario Argento and his daughter in the 3 or 4 movies they did.
Yeah, and she's really likable in this film too. Like the character Latte, it's a likable character.
Yeah. But for everyone out there, hopefully we have not, we allowed you some insight into the church, and that you will seek it out among the many different films called The Church. Uh, such a generic title for a movie. But The Church from 1989, that should help you a little bit more. And a lot of the times to sell it, they'll put Dario Argento Presents The Church above it. So check that movie out. Like I said, I gave it a 3. If you are a fan of Italian films, you probably will rate it higher because you can appreciate the types of films that came out during that time period. If you've never been exposed to Italian films from the 70s and 80s, really, you may not enjoy it nearly as much. I will say that. With that, I want to thank you, Dave, for your insight on The Church. We are going to delve more into Italian cinema on later episodes. We haven't done much. We've done some Lucio Fulci movies, but we haven't really strayed past that. I don't even think we've done a Dario Argento movie.
Yeah, I need to do Deep Red, I guess, but it's be a good one. This is considered his best one.
Yeah, that Deep Red for me is one of my favorites. It's not my favorite. It's one of my favorites because Suspiria is my favorite. I've seen that way more times than I probably should have. That one never gets boring.
Phenomena too is really really well done with Jennifer Connelly and Donald Pleasance in it, which is cool that he had, I guess, somewhat well known in the horror genre, like American actors in that.
Yeah. You laughed at the first Dario Argento film, and before we end the episode, the first one I ever saw was Trauma. I saw Trauma, loved it, went back and say, who the hell is this guy who directed this movie? And I started looking up all the other stuff that he'd done. Now, if you've ever seen Trauma, that was not a well-known or well-appreciated movie when it came out. And 93 is what I'm looking at. 93 is when I saw that.
That's the one that has the kid with the glasses in it, right? In Trauma.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, it's probably one of the first ones I saw of his as well.
Yeah, that was the first one I saw. I liked it so much I went back to see his other movies. And then the first one I saw at the theater was the Stendhal Syndrome. And I fucking love the Stendhal Syndrome. And there are people who hate that movie. But I thought that was visually stunning. And so I became a huge Dario Argento fan after that. And I went back and watched like everything I could find. Everything I could. And then I realized that I had already seen some of his movies. Like I'd seen Two Evil Eyes, but didn't know who the hell Dario was. I knew who George Romero was, but I didn't know who Dario Argento was when I saw that. So there are certain things like that. Like one of the last films I ever saw of his was Four Flies on Grey Velvet. That was so hard for me to find for the longest time. But yeah, I mean, and I've all the other Italian directors I've kind of experienced over the years. And like I said, go to Freevee, go to Pluto, go to freaking Shudder. There is a plethora of great Italian films out there for anyone who has never experienced them. You have to go to a lot of bad ones to find the diamonds in the rough, unfortunately, because there were so many of them done in the 70s and 80s. So many to dig through. But those few gems you do find, you will find some great films. So I do encourage you to go out there and check for them. And even if you've never been exposed to Dario Argento, going to Shudder and watching Dark Glasses is an interesting little film. Not one of his best, but interesting. Even his take on Dracula 3D was interesting and different, even though it's not a great movie either. with that, I want to thank you for joining us on Conversations in Horror and exploring Italian cinema in a small little corner with The Church. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day and have a great Halloween season. Watch lots of horror movies. Watch lots of Halloween franchise movies. Do all the great things that you do for our favorite time of the year. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.